What's going on, guys? This is the 5 Year Pass podcast with me, Suddy, and this is Shyam, and we'll be continuing our Premier League team preview series, kicking off with Arsenal. So we finished off a couple of good teams, probably the kind of best of the rest, and in Villa, Leeds, and Everton. But I think in these days it's hard to kind of deny that the next team we're about to talk about, Arsenal, is probably in the best of the rest category as well. The way they've kind of fallen from grace. They didn't give Unai Emery enough time, in some people's opinion. I mean, I wasn't in that boat, but he's gone on to win a trophy with Villarreal. Arteta's been up and down. However, they did end the season very, very well. I think they got 4 of their last 5 games, or 5 of the last 6 they won. They ended off really well. So you want to talk through Arsenal, Shyam? Talk us through that. Just talk us through to start off with how they ended off, or how they went through last season.
Yeah, well, they were 8th last season, and they it was the worst in 25 years, frankly. I think definitely since the Premier League started, it's their worst season in a very long time. And that includes, like you said, they won their last 5 games. So if they hadn't won those, they'd be equal on points with Newcastle. And the thought of Newcastle, where they've been all season, flirting with relegation, and then Arsenal, trying to get into the Champions League and missing out on everything, them being equal on points is quite strange. But yeah, 25 points. Sorry, first season in 25 years. Funnily enough, they actually had a pretty good defense last year. They conceded 39 goals, which is 3rd best in the league. But they clearly had an issue in scoring goals. They only scored 55, which is mid-table. I mean, they finished 8th and they were equal 10th on goals scored. So that in itself makes sense. But it shows an inability to put teams away, particularly when you're doing well defensively.
Well, that just says to me, 39 goals, you say 3rd best in the league, isn't conceded. They're not conceding a lot against teams that they beat, but when it comes to key goals, how much those goals are valued, in terms of goals against, they just can't seem to hold out against big teams. Although I think they had a good record against United last year. Every other big team, they just kind of struggled. And I do give them credit. I think against the kind of smaller teams in the bottom half, they did quite okay. But you're right. They struggled for goals. Aubameyang, he signed the contract and just didn't score for about 6 months. Anyway, look, they had a bit of transfer business. Some saying it's not the best in terms of prices they're paying. Talk us through Ben White and what do you think he brings in, and then go through the other transfers that you've seen in and out.
Yeah, Ben White's someone that I've rated. We talked last season about him at Brighton, sort of playing on the right side of the back three.
You do like Brighton in general.
Yeah, I do like Brighton, and he was one of their best players. Very, very good young prospect. I think that it's a good move for him to go to Arsenal. The big question marks over that valuation, though, £50 million. It shows. I thought a bit with United and Real Madrid, because as at the time of recording, we've just signed Varane, United, which is a massive thing. And there's obvious comparisons between him and White being players of a similar position. White's obviously a bit younger, has not got the pedigree Varane does, and yet United are paying a lot. Arsenal are paying a lot more. So there's probably a couple of questions there. I guess one being around sort of that English tax and teams not having the flexibility to go for foreign players because of the price tags, and needing a certain number of England players. If you think about Man United paying 50 million for Wan-Bissaka, this is quite a similar transfer to buying a guy you can plonk in a spot and play him for 10 years, which is what United want to do with Bissaka. So it's probably a much closer signing for me to someone like Wan-Bissaka, and it shows the disparity in 2 ways. Firstly, the premium on English players means that clubs who look to bring youth talent through the system with English nationality, they're going to have an advantage in terms of flexibility. I think there's been an overemphasis on a lot of teams that have gone and bought foreign players, for squad positions. And I think the tightened market in Europe, plus Brexit, which has affected a lot of clubs in terms of who can be foreign and who can't, because England's no longer part of the EU. So those sort of things, clubs have had to adjust. And I think that that's put a premium on English players. They've also gone and got Nuno Tavares, who I think is a good signing. He's sort of a more backup left back type player.
Where's he from?
From Portugal.
Okay.
And he's done quite well. He'll play as that sort of backup left back. I think if Tierney gets injured, he plays that position. It allows Saka to still play up high and focus more on being an attacking player. And they've gone and got Lokonga from under like 21-year-old.
He's a good player.
Yeah, been mentored by Vincent Company. People keep mentioning that, so I thought I mentioned it too. But can play anywhere in the midfield. It'd be interesting to see where he does play because Arteta has shown an ability to move a lot of pieces around. But they've
Yeah,
got two big outs. They've had Odegaard come and go, and he
I was
played a
just
bit of
about to
football while
touch
he
on
was
that.
there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
David Luiz as well is been put on away, been sent on his way. Sorry.
Yeah, my 2 cents on Odegaard. I think he was someone who could have been very good. I think he had a good little bit of half season. I think given time, he would have actually been quite good for the Arsenal system. The way he plays, he would have been grateful for the opportunity. It was a bit unclear. He just kind of made a comment that he won't be going back to Arsenal. I don't know why. Is he part of Ancelotti's plan? Maybe. Um, I would, if I was Odegaard, I would also be interested to see what Ancelotti has in store for me versus an Arteta and an Arsenal and Arteta. But
Odegaard's a
David
good
Luiz,
Odegaard's a good type of a player for Ancelotti because
yeah,
Ancelotti likes letting his players express themselves,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
that type of player. It's
yeah.
make or break for him. He's been at Madrid for forever and not really had a game, so
Mm,
he should really go in there and have a massive crack. I think
yeah.
as well. I think the emergence of Smith Rowe sort of affected him as well. They weren't really expecting Smith Rowe to kick on the way that he did, and I think that affected
No,
Odegaard's playing time.
yeah. As far as starts go, a mixed start for Arsenal, I guess. Away to Brentford, Man City, Burnley, home to Chelsea, Norwich, Tottenham. Very mixed. You got a derby in there in the first 6 games. Um, is it tough? Is it something they'd be expecting to get? Let's see, 18 points. Would you expect 12 to 15, or is it something you just don't know with Arsenal because you don't know what the state of the club's in?
I
I mean,
actually
I
think
obviously
I actually think
the
it's
way I
really
said that was
tough.
very leading. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's really tough because you've got in your first four games Manchester City and Chelsea,
Yeah.
and then you've also got to deal with a derby in Tottenham, which is really roll a dice, see how the one turns out. And you've got two promoted teams as well, and in Brentford and Norwich. The worst time
Yeah.
to play promoted teams is at the beginning of the season. Once
Absolutely.
November, December kicks in, that's when their performances drop off. But promoted teams have a history of starting off quite well. Your Leeds
Yeah.
United were a very good example last year.
Yeah.
So it's the worst time to play because those clubs have all
It's
that optimism around them from being promoted, and in Brentford's case, they won the richest game in world football in terms of the Premiership promotion game.
yeah.
So the key for them is a very healthy squad. If they don't get that squad right, it could be very up and down. Oddly,
Mm,
the one advantage they'll have, funnily enough, is that they don't have European football. So I think that
mm,
that's going to help them quite a bit to really focus on getting that first 11 right and stop having all of these rotations. I think the fact
mm,
that they played to the UEFA semis last year, the Europa semis, probably affected them in terms of getting the partnerships right and getting the relationships right between the players. Because if you look at their key players, they've only had two outfield players make more than 30 appearances in the league. So Bernard
mm,
Leno played 35 games as a keeper, but Saka and Shaka played 32 games
mm,
each. The Swiss one and the English one played 32 games each. But
yeah.
funnily enough, if you look at, say, whoscored.com, who have the player ratings, of their top 15 players, 10 of them played 25 games or less. And that includes games off the bench.
Mm,
So it looks like of his top players, he's rotating a lot. He's not got the continuity there. A lot of them are making games off the bench. Lena's not even in the top 15. He's 19th on Arsenal's
mm,
list as well in terms of the ability to be a key player and be an important player. He quite underperformed last year. He's came to England with a very good reputation, but that reputation has fallen a bit at Arsenal, particularly with
mm,
Martinez going to Villa and doing quite well. So there's a lot of pressure on Leno, I think, to do well next season. And I
mm,
also think that Saka, after what happened with England, unfortunately missed the penalty. They got a lot of
mm,
racist bile thrown at him. It'd be a chance for him to
mm,
really sort of stand up and be, an important player for Arsenal as well. And the other
yeah.
one I think who's a key player for Arsenal is Mikel Arteta. The fact that he's
Mm,
rotated so many players, not got the combinations right, it's almost like he's trying a little bit too much.
mm,
And I think that if you compare Mikel Arteta to Ole Gunnar, for example, a lot
mm,
of United fans would agree that Ole's generally doing the right things.
mm,
Ideally, would like to see the club moving forward a little quicker than it is, but generally it's
mm,
moving in the right direction.
yeah.
Arteta, you've still got that up and down there, the undulation and who's playing with who, rotating the youngsters in for the experienced players. There's a lot of questions there to figure out. But perhaps
Mm-hmm.
without the distraction of European football, they can sit down and just figure it out.
Well, I think when it comes to if you compare the Oli Arteta comparison, I think how the fans deal with a loss is very indicative of where the club is at. And I'm talking about your random loss, your first loss in 5 games, 3 games, how fans deal with that. And you see United fans about 2 or 3 years ago, it was Ollie out. And it's slowly become, you want to get to a stage where you're Liverpool losing 7-2 to Villa last season was, it's okay, it was just a blip. And that's the confidence the fans need to have in the club. And I don't think Arsenal have that. I don't think United has that, but United have a long way since 2018 when they hired Ollie. But you're absolutely right. I just wanted to point out as well, in that opening 6 games, they have Norwich. In terms of Norwich and Brentford, Norwich lost their best, most creative attacking outlet, Buendia. But Brentford have Ivan Toney. I think he got about 25 goals, 10 assists in that kind of region last year. Very, very good play, very powerful and fast. Drogba-esque, Lukaku-esque. Obviously, he's black, and I wouldn't have made those comparisons. But
it's classy and athletic, yeah.
Classy and athletic, yeah. But yeah, look, I think Arsenal are going to have a very, very tough season if they don't get their first 6 to 10 games right. Because Arsenal historically are a club that when they go into free fall, it falls fast, it falls hard. We were talking about relegation last season, if you remember. So it'd be a tough season. Any closing thoughts on Arsenal, Shyam?
The only other thing I wanted to mention was Saliba. They have a centre-back, Saliba, who's come from France. He went on loan.
Yeah.
And then a second season, and now he's gone on loan again. Reading the Arsenal fan message boards, they're not very happy about that. The defense was actually quite good, 39 goals conceded, even if Leno was underperforming, as I said. But the idea of buying in Ben White and sending him out on loan again is not something that the Arsenal fans are that keen on, although Saliba and Arteta seem fine with it. But it leans itself to who are Arsenal's best players. You can't even look at guys like Aubameyang and Lacazette and say they're Arsenal's best players anymore. So that sort of hierarchy and that ability to actually train between games without European football, without the sandwich season, could help them or could send them all the way down.
Perfect. Great analysis, Shyam, as always. So Arsenal this season, what do you think they'll come? I want a position. I don't want a region.
I think they're going to be about the same. If you put a number on me, I'd say 8. I'm thinking 8 to 10.
More the 8th.
But if you put a number on me, I'm going to say 8th. I think they'll miss out in Europe again. I do think it's going to be a one step backward, one step forward type of season that if they get it right could launch them into the future. But I think they're going to have to suffer a bit this year to get there.
Perfect. I wouldn't disagree with you there. I think I would have said the same between 8 and 10, unfortunately, for Arsenal fans. All right, perfect. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are the 5 Yard Pass Podcast. My name is Suddy. This is Shyam. Keep football simple. And as always,
keep passing, guys.
Cheers.